sing this next song about anything at all.
Welcome, any and all, to the Thursday edition of Dreaming in Paradox. I am your host, John Olson.
And I'm your host, Jose Benutolo.
And joining us once more, we have Lord Alex Leon.
Yes.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes.
Thank you for coming again. All the way from Toronto.
Montreal.
Montreal.
Oh my goodness.
There's many other places in Canada.
Ooh.
Do you know Susie in Canada?
Sushi. I
So you all Canadians knew each other.
Can
Can I finish?
I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish?
I thought your hair was going to split in two and you were just like talking
Can I
like
finish?
that.
Or can I finish?
Good.
Well,
So Thursdays.
we could just animate over him.
We
so
should.
whenever he
We
talks.
should get like
This is like the
you know,
bobblehead.
Terrace and Philip.
Yeah.
Yes.
You watch South Park?
Yeah,
Yeah. Accurate portrayal of Canadians?
I could try.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like South Park has an accurate portrayal?
Yes,
Yeah,
I do,
yeah, right.
A lot of
They do
jokes,
have-
Sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So points for South Park for
Yeah.
portraying
Good job.
an accurate
Good job with
depiction
the
of
accuracy.
Canadians.
All right. So we're moving on to either my or Jose's topic.
Yes.
We will decide through a little game called Odds or Evens.
Yes.
Do you want odds or evens?
I want odds.
All right.
So-
Odds. It's you. You win. Choose wisely.
I want to start.
You want to start?
I want to start. I want to start.
Okay, you took my choice. I thought my flow would have been better. It's all good.
Who knows?
We're talking
We'll
now.
see. So
What do you got for us?
there is something that is common in the three of us, and it's the fact that we have been uprooted from where we come from, and we have settled in a different place, and that includes many miles traveled and technically a complete change of life. So I want to talk a little about that.
All right.
Backstories of where we come from
You wanna?
and what our
you
experience
wanna
were
start
when we
us-
got.
Let's
Yes,
start us off.
I lived in Venezuela from 1980 to 2008, 28 years. And then I got a chance through somehow relative of mine that offered me a one in a lifetime opportunity to pursue a dream. And I took it.
And you were like, let's do it.
I was, yes. I mean, it was kind of one of those easy decisions. Like you just like, it just makes sense. It just made sense to do it. And I faced a lot of opposition from family figures that even trying to convince me to that was a crazy idea to just like at 28 years old, like going and pursue something that in my country, it's not actually seen as something that you can make a living out of.
It's a little crazy.
And yes, I mean, like my father didn't speak to me for like a month.
Oh,
It's
really?
Like,
He
it
was
was like this is, he had other plans. And granted, most of the time, I mean, I used to listen a lot to what he had to say, and most of the time it will end up in something positive, something good. But the only thing that was lacking is initiative from me. I was a perfect soldier who dreamed to be a general, and I needed at some point to stop taking orders and start giving them.
Oh.
And it was one of the things that I wanted to do in life, and becoming a director felt like giving a lot of orders and being actually the general of a set. Place that is not democratic. You have to follow your vision. You have to know what you want, because that's the other thing, not only in life but what you want to do. So in 2008, I started, like, it was January 20th, 2008 when this decision was made.
I got the exact.
And yes,
exact day.
yeah, when things that
Let's
may
stay in
or change
history.
your life, then you do have you
Right.
remember the dates
Right.
and the facts.
Maybe you do.
Yeah, it's a long story, so I'm not gonna bore you with it. Eventually, one day,
Yeah,
I
tell
might.
us about how it was when you
So-
got here. Like,
When I got here, it was
Culture
interesting. Definitely not as much as you would think.
Okay.
Not as much as you would think, because we grew up with a lot of American TV. So opposite to the opinion of a lot of people, American TV do capture pretty much of the essence of.
You think it does?
I think it do. I think it does. But then again, and this is a discussion that I have with a friend of mine, an actually ex-girlfriend of mine who was American. And she would warn me. She would say like, Baywatch is not real. If you go to a beach, you're not gonna see, Pamela Anderson in a bathing suit, or
Right.
or David Hasselhoff. And then she said like, what you see on TV, it's not the reality. But then I came to America. But this is the point: there is New York and there is America. And I feel that New York is not an accurate depiction of what the rest of the country is, especially the coasts of the United States they have more immigration, they have more diversity, and then they're not an exact depiction. They're a depiction of themselves, but not of the center of the country, not of the parts that are more homogeneous. I feel that if I go to Nebraska or something like that, then maybe I will see that these TV series are not as accurate as they are. But my experience of coming to New York is that every corner there is a sitcom character. Every corner, every person you speak, you can pinpoint a character in Friends, in Everybody Loves Raymond, in what's it called?
Are we mostly just those
like,
side characters for like those one episode?
No, and sometimes it's very like, for example, I give you an example. Like when I came here a little before I moved here, when I came here backpacking and I explored America, I went to 3 cities in the West Coast, 3 cities in the East Coast. I arrived to a hostel. And there were it was like 3 a.m. in the morning or something. I came from JFK. And there was these 2 guys who were like the counter. One of them was a Latino and the other one was a black guy. And the Latino was super friendly. And the other guy seemed like he had no friends at all. But they were very, like their interaction was very friendly. But when they addressed somebody, it was like, one of them was like, what do you want? What are you doing here? And the other one is like, welcome, like it's a wonderful city. You need places to go and see. And it just felt like I was never exposed to that.
To a specific show or something? Like, I
mean,
thought you were gonna give us that kind of example.
Well, I mean, the same thing. Like you go to Starbucks and you're sitting there, you're ordering your coffee, and then there's the guy who's talking about a film that he wants to do. There's another guy trying to convince somebody to invest into something. There's the suit and tie that has like shorts, or like you see the socks, and the socks are completely.
I used to live near this place in Bushwick, where you'd go in and there was like a little coffee shop. It was so hipster. It was like you'd see everybody getting their little cups of coffee and like 15 laptops out, like 14 of them MacBooks. It was like everybody was like, it was fun.
It was
fun.
like
a cartoon. I was always like, this is like the joke of what a hipster coffee joint is like.
More of like I went to hostels at the beginning, and then I would meet like the kid from Canada who was obviously mixed race because he looked Filipino or something, but he grew up in Toronto or something like that, and he saved $10,000 and he was a surfer, and he was going around the world with $10,000. So this is a guy who said I can spend $1 in a meal today, and that's as much as he spent, and he had the flag of Canada sort of to his backpack, like the freaking cliche that you see everywhere, like super friendly, what you expect to be a Canadian. You see a Canadian backpacking and all that stuff. And then I would just go into a room.
Is that insulting? Is that racist?
No, it's not.
No,
As long as you don't think
okay.
that all Canadians live in a cabana.
No, they live in an igloo.
Everything is okay.
And the beaver is a noble animal.
It is a noble animal.
And you have mounties, and that's awesome. But anyway, I would go into another hostel, for example, and then while I was trying to figure out where to live in New York, and then I would share a room with about 7 people, and then they were all frat boys that were coming out of college and college break or whatever like that, and they were drunk. They were drunk as much drunk as you can be. 2 of them were snoring. One of them just like simply you hear him burping, and then suddenly you're sleeping, and then you see a guy that just goes sideways, pukes on the floor. The other ones laugh. Some of them high five, and then they just go back to sleep. And you go like, it's. I don't know if I had the chance to see something that not everybody sees, but it felt like, like if you're watching American Pie and then you just go to a hostel and you see this guy and you go like, these things happen. These things are an accurate depiction of things that people would do at a certain point.
And like TV creates stereotypes, and you go like, oh wow, these stereotypes are all true. I mean, because they're based on Something,
They're
right?
based on fact. They're based on some kind of
Yeah.
fact, exaggerated. Like
Sure.
some of these things will not happen in a row. You
Yeah.
know, but you go around town, you
Same
do
frequency,
find.
but you see,
You do find. You find the 70-year-old hippie that still, like peace and love, and then he's like smoking a joint in Central Park, and then the same way that you find the suit and tie that doesn't want to talk to you, or the guys. And actually, I mean, I don't know if I can. You probably cannot show it, but I went to the movies about like 3 days ago, and I went to Battery Park, to the movie theater in Battery Park, and the movie theater in Battery Park is next to one of those corporate buildings. Yeah. And when I was coming down of the stairs, there was like electric stairs.
Escalator?
Escalator, correct, like escalators. And I'm looking, and it's one building next to the other. The next building is a corporate building. And there was a side of the building had like cubicles and computers, just like you see it like in the Matrix, like where Neo used to work. Yeah. And I was like, oh, and I took a picture of it. And then when I saw the next 2 floors, there was a huge table with at least 50 suits on it. Everybody just looking at a screen, and a person just talking, and it's the kind of things that you see the corporate America that you see on TV, but you have never actually seen in real life. So I kind of like, I went down and I went back up, and I took my camera and took a couple of snapshots of that, because I've never seen it. It is real though. I saw 50 suits looking at a screen because they had a board meeting, people well dressed and all this stuff, and I go like, these stereotypes are real, but sometimes you just take it too much for granted that you forget when you see them that they are there. So it wasn't too much of a cultural shock. I mean, I did have issues with the language. I did speak English, not as well as I do it right now. I still have an accent. I did not know that I had an accent.
I love that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm used to my own voice, but it didn't take me too long. I feel that sometimes you belong somewhere else, and then you just look for it, and then you get there, and you feel you're home.
Yeah. You feel like you're home here?
I feel I'm home.
It's nice.
It is nice.
I'm glad. What about, what's your move? Because you live in Canada.
Yeah, so my
But you
story...
didn't always, right?
Well, my story was... I guess we have similar, some things we have, like an overlap on things.
Mm-hmm.
But a little bit different because of the location. Like for me, I don't know why, but I knew all the time that I wanted to go to Canada.
Yeah.
I was born in Montreal, but my parents left when I was 2 years old. So I was living in Venezuela since then. And somehow...
Did you guys grow up in the same...
No.
city?
We overlap a lot, but we didn't grow up in the same city.
Yeah, we
Okay.
didn't.
Just good.
Yeah, and what happened was that I wasn't really aware that I was a Canadian, that I was born until in Venezuela, when you're in school, they used, back in the time, I think this changed now, but back in the time they used to display your final notes and everything, like for scores for like your studies, in a giant wall, and I don't know why they put your name, last name, and your nationality. So
that's how you found out.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, it made it. I always knew it was. I knew, but it wasn't present, But so until, and then everybody was looking at me like, oh, you're Canadian, and I was like, well, I was born there, but I didn't really have, I didn't really live there to be Canadian. So. But anyways, when I was in high school, I was already telling my parents that I wanted to go and I wanted to go out and see other things, and obviously, they kept telling me like, let's wait until you graduate and whatever, a little bit older. So they kind of like put a goal for me, and it was to graduate in high school with my bachelor in science and whatever, and then after they said, okay, if you do that, then let's talk about going. Okay. And so I did it, and I was 17, and like you had a little bit of opposition, because whenever you're trying to do something radical and a big change in life, I think people are very fearful. I met a lot of people there that could.
I mean, it's good to be cautious to an extent, right?
It is, but at the same time, if you're too cautious, you will never do the things. I think sometimes that you don't have to overthink what you want to do. Sometimes there are moments in life that you have to just take the leap of faith and do it.
Yeah.
Because if you calculate too much,
the passion's there.
Exactly. I'm sure that people that went into space at some point, if they overcalculated everything, they would never go. At some point, they had to say, "Look, there's a risk that you're gonna die, but this is our best shot. Let's go, and I don't know." So I left, and I did have a little bit of a cultural shock. Canada is not, although it's neighbors with the U.S., it's not the same
No,
culture.
it's-
They're very different. And at top of everything, I landed in Quebec, so they have two languages,
Yeah.
and that within itself, makes a little bit of a difference. It's like two cultures mixed together, and in Quebec in particular, my feeling is that if you stay with, if you only speak French or English, you're kind of handicapped. You have to really know both to make it, and but I had my priorities straight by the time I got there, so. I seek out a job immediately as soon as I could. I went through the immigration process too, in a way, because I had to go and learn French, where immigrants go to learn French. But I did get a lot of people that helped me out. I guess I was young.
Do you still speak French?
I do speak French, yeah, fluently. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, and that helped me a lot. Actually, funny enough, it took me about a year to learn both languages in a way that I could sustain a conversation. And but at the end, it was Spanish actually that got me ahead, because what happens I realized
'Cause
after
it's more rare. It's like a commodity.
no, actually no. It's just that in Quebec, the primary language is French, right?
Right.
And then English is there as well, but English Canada is pretty large. And then normally a company that succeeds in Quebec is doing business with the rest of Canada. So you need English to do that. And then a Canadian company, let's say a Quebecois company, makes it, and they're already making business in the rest of Canada. The next step is making business with the US. So that's good because you have English, but then the second language here is Spanish in a way. So, and that's where it kicked in for me, because getting jobs, since I had the two languages, there's many people in Quebec that are not, they don't really go well for English, like they just stay within French. So at the time of doing business with English-speaking company or the US or Canada, they pick people that speak the language. So I had an advantage. And typically when this company had to deal with coming to the States, and in the States Spanish is important for some things, I had an advantage again. So that propelled me to be sent places and do a lot of things because of those three languages.
Nice.
So I have to say that it was an experience. I don't know, and when I said the leap of faith, I want to go back to that because sometimes I think 20 years after, I think that if I would have the knowledge that I have now, I probably wouldn't have done the jump of going to Canada. If I would have been me with what I know now, at 39,
done
in
it
Venezuela, I probably wouldn't have gone. I would have been afraid a little bit and maybe, sort of like not do it. I would overthink it a little bit. So I think that sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone, take a leap of faith, and make the move. I have a different opinion of the accent, though. I don't think I actually took advantage of my accent. So people used to tell me, like, when I go outside of Quebec, if I go into Toronto, they think that my accent is actually French, but it's not. It's actually my Spanish in the background that is, coming across. But I realized quickly, so it's like, oh, you're French, so your accent is like, oh, you're French Quebecer. I'm like, well, yes, but the accent that you hear is actually, I lived in Venezuela for 17 years, so you can get rid of it that easily. But I did notice that when you have an accent, actually people pay attention when you talk, because they want to understand you.
Interesting.
So I took advantage
Lean
of that.
in just a little bit closer.
Huh?
They lean in just a little
They
closer.
lean a little bit closer.
Yeah.
They want to focus a little bit on what you're saying. So I use that a lot, actually, to when I used to talk to people, I was aware of it, and I used it so people would listen to me and what I had to say. So when you're there, it's like I was dropped and I had no family, no friends, nothing. When I arrived in Montreal, I had $1,000 in my pocket and I have a one-way ticket, and that was it. I had to make it. So when you're in that situation, you make every little disadvantage, you make it an advantage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
I think historically that's what people do.
Yeah.
They find that what some people consider a disadvantage, that's actually like a niche. It's something that can be. It's something that can be what's the word? Can be taken advantage of.
Yes.
Yeah. So I remember literally going to stores and asking questions about clothes and things like that, just to practice the language.
Yeah,
So
makes
I would,
sense.
you know, I would target like certain stores and then go in English, and then I would target other ones and go in French, to the point that actually I got kicked out of one of them. I said, "Hey man, you've been here asking the same questions like
Yeah.
over and over." I was like practicing my colors, you know,
Yeah.
what color is that pant there, and where, you know, and numbers and things. You really you get really
We
creative.
caught on.
Yeah, you really get creative when it comes to like, I needed that. You need to dominate the language to, you know, integrate to society. So yeah,
Makes
that
sense.
was, yeah.
That's
What
cool.
about you?
I mean, mine's very different from either of yours. I moved around. I don't know if I want to say a lot, but I moved a few times when I was younger. I was born in LA, but we moved also when I was 2. We moved to the South. Moved outside of Atlanta, lived there for a few years, then went back west to San Diego. And then from San Diego, I like jumped over to New York State for high school, and then back to San Diego after high school. So
Oh wow, you moved.
yeah, kind of bouncing
boom,
around. I go from coast to coast. I mean the biggest move was my move here, cause like I moved here, not really having an infrastructure of any kind. Like it might have actually been a little smarter to move to LA, just because I would have been closer to a lot more family. But New York was exciting to me. I don't know.
It's exciting.
I wanted to come here. The city itself was interesting to me. There were other advantages. I didn't have a car, so like it was definitely a consideration that like, oh, I don't need to get one. I just moved to the city, and like I just, you know, I had a couple of roommates through the film school, and I was just like beyond. So I knew like my first year I'd have a home and like vaguely what I'd be doing. After that was like, you know, up in the air.
Yeah.
It's just, can you survive someplace? But I mean, the way in which we got to experience, me and Jose got to experience New York City is so much different from, I feel like, the average way that people get to experience it. In filming, we were all over the place. Like meeting, like really like all over the city. We shoot all in and around it. You get to see just like, you know, what so many different kinds of homes look like that way. You know, you move to a place, you know, your apartment, maybe what your friends look like. Like I've been in so many different kinds of New York apartments. Like I really feel like I know a lot of what the city looks like, both on the street and inside. And that's kind of a cool thing. I don't know, I kind of came from metropolis to metropolis though. I don't feel like it was as big of a thing. Where I lived in high school in Syracuse was a much smaller town than either San Diego or New York. It was just very rural. And like, you know, my community was like my high school, a few friends, a couple of malls. Like that was the world, right?
Yeah.
It's just like this small little microcosm of America. And then compared to like San Diego or even more so New York, it's just like there's such a diverse array of things going on. But yeah, very, very different from your. I didn't have to ever learn any new languages. That's nice. I kind of wish I knew some other languages though, to be perfectly honest.
It
Like,
helps.
It's cool. Like it's just a cool thing to be able to say that you can do, and that you can go places and use that. You know, I have to go. If I go someplace like France for a long period of time, I'm gonna have to, you know, study up, and then like I can't just go and start talking to people, which is a cool thing to be able to do. Like anywhere, like my first consideration is like, well, what language do they speak? Am I gonna have a hard time? Some places you'll have a really hard time. But a lot of places are very English speaking friendly. So I'm also aware of that. It's a nice
thing.
It's a nice little thing.
It used to be French, now it's English.
Yeah.
It will shift to Chinese
Yeah, one day.
at some point.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Which Chinese though?
Which I don't know. I
Oh.
don't know. I think it's them for them to determine. Whatever they speak in Hong Kong,
Yeah,
it's probably what.
For me, and I wanted
English.
to just to say something. I don't want to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, even now, for example, I'm going to South America and have a contract, and it's because I speak Spanish that I'm going there.
Mm.
So I'm spraying technology for a particular company, and you know,
Yeah, it's an
they're
easy
doing
thing to
business
leverage
that-
into work, a second language.
It's like it, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
I think you do have advantages of, yeah.
My father used to say that if you manage to speak fluently two languages, you will always have a job. And that was one thing that he told me one time. He
It's
said,
it's pretty true. There's definitely some truth there, because
There's things that you can
need
find,
to communicate, right? Like,
yeah.
especially in a place like this, where like the more languages, the higher of advantage you get. You know,
Correct.
there are plenty of jobs where like, if you speak another language, you'll get picked first.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very understandable why.
Of course.
Um,
I mean, it's a comparative advantage.
yeah.
What they call. That's the.
Oh, look at
They
you.
call it. And then some. I did go to college. I did learn a couple of stuff.
You know a thing or two.
So it wasn't complete waste of time. There's something stayed.
Yeah.
The big old melon.
I have to say, like, as someone who's moved a lot, I'm not in a big hurry to move more. Like,
I can
it's
understand
just,
that.
it's tough. Like, especially a big move, like, where you're in a new city, all new people, like, it's, you know, you leave so much behind. And there's, like, you know, you just get used to a way a place works.
Yes.
You know, I'm very used to, like, the way life in New York runs now. You know, I understand that, like, I don't know, it's just like it ebbs and flows here, in a way that I don't know, like, what another city is going to do.
Yeah.
Like, especially if I don't know anybody there, I have very little interest in moving a place where I don't know anybody. Because that's just tough. Like, you start with, you know, hopefully you have a job, and then, like, you know, you've got work
Starting over,
friends.
yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, that stuff. So I've done that a few times, and so, like, that's something that, like, I'm not in a hurry for.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I realized after that, going in line with what you're saying, is that a lot of because some people think that opportunities are essentially just available in certain places and whatnot, but I realized there is a little bit of some truth into that, but I think that the place that you are and you're happy with also is made by the people that are around you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's not so
absolutely.
much about the cities, like the people that you meet in that
Yeah.
city and that network. And I'm thinking that the hardest thing for everybody when you change locations is just that, you know, that social aspect of it. You know, who are your friends, who are the people that are close to you.
Yeah.
I
You
think
spend,
that's-
like, years cultivating relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But a place is a place. I mean, it doesn't matter if you go, you know, I think if you would change from, you know, from one location to another, and the cities are very different in the landscape, you know, I'm pretty sure, like, I've been in San Diego and I can tell that the landscape is very different from the one in New York. It's so
It's a really nice
yeah,
place. Like,
but-
as far as places go,
yeah.
it's about as good as
Yeah.
places you're ever gonna
Yeah.
find.
But at the end of the day, you know, it's not the place that make you happier. It's that probably the people that you met and the people you know now.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that I think that has a lot to do with
Yeah.
you know, with things.
I mean, another thing about New York that I like personally is that, like, I have a pretty good idea about how to find work in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Like,
figured already. how to
just,
see
you
it.
know, I freelance mostly in film, and it's like I know that there is a market for that
Yeah.
in the city that's in pretty constant need. It has its, like, dry seasons, busy seasons, but, like,
Correct.
like, I know how to use that market. Whereas, if I go to another place like LA, which has a busy market, like, I don't know how to navigate that water the same way I know how to navigate this one. And so that, you know, those kinds of things I feel like make it a little tough also.
You guys lived in New York, so you probably know it a lot better. I have a question. I have a confession to make. Actually, I didn't really like New York the very first time that I came in.
Oh no.
It took me actually. It took not because I didn't like the city in general. It's just that I couldn't find my way around. Like you said, I don't know. It was difficult for me to.
It can be a confusing.
It could be a confusing place.
It
It took me a few times actually, and I think that is when you start going out places in New York and you get, you know, to certain corners that you start liking it.
There's so
and getting
many
the hang of
cool
it.
little spots
Yeah.
in New York.
Yeah.
It's such a like it's so divided. There's like you go into Brooklyn and like there's 20 different Brooklyns
Yes.
to experience. you
Yes.
know? You go into Manhattan and there's like a whole bunch of ways to experience Manhattan. Like people might think of like Times Square, but like okay, that's just one tiny little piece
Yeah.
of that puzzle.
Obviously,
And
yeah.
like there's so many just interesting things in New York.
So I tell people when they tell me, yeah, I went to New York and I don't know, I said, New York is a city that, you know, you have to give it a few chances. You have to go. I
You
think
might
that-
have a great time the first time, but you might not.
you know, yeah, exactly. So, you know, to the people that tell me, yeah, I don't know, I said, look, New York, you gotta go a few times. You know, if you don't get it the first time, you have to go a second time and a third time, maybe even a fourth time to really get it. And then, but once you get it, I mean, I love coming here.
You get it, you get it.
Once you get it,
Yeah.
and you know,
Then you got it.
You got it.
Exactly.
On that note,
Yes.
we're gonna
We're
wrap
running
up
out of time.
this
These
episode.
Topics.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right.
Crazy.
So if you like this episode, if you have your own story that you care to share publicly, share it. Subscribe to the show if you like it. Like it if you like it.
Like it if you
And
like it.
share it because sharing is caring. So I think that's my usual
It's true.
spiel.
It's
Those
true.
three things.
Just 3 things. That is correct.
Like it, love it, share it. And if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at John in Paradox.
And you can find me at Lord Alex.
You can find me at Jose in Paradox. On that note, visible friends from the future, we say goodbye from the past.